Hello, friends. You're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never thought a part-time job at a Coca Cola distribution warehouse would ruin my sleep for the rest of my life. My name is Evan Mercer, age 29, living in Stockbridge, Georgia, just a few miles south of Atlanta. In 2022, after my dad died of a heart attack and the medical bills drowned my family, I took whatever job paid above minimum wage. That's how I ended up working the overnight shift at the Redline Beverage Distribution Center, a massive warehouse that stocked Coca Cola products for half the state. The job was simple: move pallets, scan shipments, check inventory. But the nights were something else entirely. People joked the warehouse was haunted. Old workers claimed they heard footsteps when no one was around, forklifts moving by themselves, and whispers echoing between the aisles of soda cases stacked 20 feet high. I didn't believe any of it until the night I saw something move inside the Coca Cola storage room. And it wasn't human. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., the kind of shift where the world is asleep and every sound feels louder than it should. The building was cold, huge, and dimly lit. Red exit signs glowed like distant eyes, and the air always smelled like syrup and wet cardboard. Towering stacks of Coca Cola cans and bottles created narrow aisles that felt like tunnels. My supervisor, Carl Jensen, was a Vietnam veteran who looked like he'd seen worse things than any warehouse ghost. "Stay away from storage room C after 2 a.m., he told me on my first night, tightening his reflective vest. "Why?" I asked, half grinning. He stared at me with a seriousness I didn't expect. "Because that's when it starts." I laughed, thinking he was messing with me. He didn't laugh back. 2 weeks into the job, at exactly 2:13 a.m., I heard it, a dragging sound, like someone sliding a pallet across the concrete floor. I was scanning barcodes near aisle 17 when the noise came again. Low, slow, scraping metal. It echoed from storage room C, a cold, locked chamber used only for temperature-sensitive shipments of Coca Cola Classic. Everyone else was across the warehouse. I was alone on that side. I walked toward the room, my scanner shaking in my hand. The metal door was cracked open. A cold wave of air spilled out, and from inside, a whisper. "Ivan!" Every hair on my body rose. I stepped closer, thinking maybe Carl was messing with me. But Carl was on his break in the office, 200 feet away. When I peeked inside, the lights flickered. The room was small, lined with industrial shelves and crates of Coca Cola bottles stacked neatly. But one pallet had shifted, and behind it, I saw something crouch low. A shape, black, slender, wrong. It moved like a spider, too fast, too smooth. My throat closed. I stumbled backward. The door slammed shut by itself, nearly catching my hand. I ran. I don't even remember my legs moving, but somehow I made it to the main floor. Carl stared at me when I burst into the office, panting, white as snow. "You went near storage C, didn't you?" he muttered. I nodded. He took a shaky breath. "It noticed you." Carl didn't tell me everything that night, but he told me enough to keep me awake for hours. Years ago, long before I worked there, a worker named Thomas Hale died inside storage room C. He'd been crushed by a pallet after a forklift malfunctioned. They called it an accident, but many believed otherwise. "He said something was following him," Carl explained in a low voice. "Said it hid between the Coke pallets. Said it moved when the lights flickered." "What did?" I asked. Carl stared at the vending machine beside us, the one filled with Coca Cola cans. "The shadows," he whispered. I tried to laugh it off, but Carl wasn't joking. He continued. Thomas's shift logs were strange. He wrote about hearing whispering, about seeing something crawl behind the crates. The night he died, he told us it kept getting closer. Carl tapped the desk nervously. "He said it smelled like syrup. Suddenly I felt sick, because that same smell lingered on my clothes after I ran out of storage C-suite. Metallic. Wrong. The next night I almost called in sick. But rent doesn't pay itself, so I dragged myself back into the warehouse. At 2:02 a.m., The lights over aisle 14 flickered violently. My stomach tightened. I pushed my cart faster, pretending not to notice. But then my scanner beeped on its own. Beep! 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 Even though I wasn't scanning anything, the screen displayed a message I'd never seen before. Item not alone. My blood froze. I turned around, and the pallets behind me shifted as if something moved through them. A shadow slipped between the aisles. I couldn't see its face. I couldn't see its body. Just the outline, dark and tall, bending unnaturally, as if it had no bones. And then it whispered again. Avon. My name, twisted, stretched, echoing with layers, as if several voices spoke it at once. I backed away, bumping into Coca Cola crates. The shadow glided closer, until it was less than 10 feet away. Then, without warning, the forklift on the other side of the warehouse turned on by itself. Its engine roared. Lights blazed. Its wheels spun in place. The shadow snapped its head toward the noise and disappeared in a blink, melting into the darkness like ink in water. I collapsed to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. Something was hunting me. The worst night came the following week. I was alone in the break room, trying to drink water to calm my trembling hands. The Coca Cola vending machine hummed next to me, bright red and glossy. I'd used it 100 times. But tonight something dripped from the coin slot. Thick, black, sticky, like syrup, but darker. I stepped closer, confused. Inside the machine, something moved. Something pressed from the inside of the glass. A handprint, long fingers, too many joints, too thin to be human. It dragged downward, leaving a trail against the glass. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. The machine turned off by itself. No hum, no lights, just silence. Then the whisper came again, right behind me. I'm closer. I bolted out of the break room, sprinting through the aisles until my lungs burned. Carl grabbed me near the loading docks. You're done tonight. Go home, he said firmly. It won't stop following you if you keep working the night shift. What is it? I demanded, voice shaking. His eyes softened with fear. We don't know. But ever since Thomas died, anyone who sees it ends up like him. I swallowed hard. Crushed? Carl nodded slowly. It mimics the environment. It hides in anything dark, especially near soda pallets. It waits until you're alone. And then it pushes. I decided to quit. No job was worth dying over. But on my last shift, something happened that still gives me nightmares. We were closing early due to a shipment delay. Carl asked me to gather my equipment and return my access badge. Easy enough. I walked through the aisles one last time. Aisle 6, aisle 8, aisle 10, trying not to think about the shadow. Then the lights went out. All of them. The entire warehouse plunged into darkness. My heart hammered. I fumbled for my phone flashlight. As soon as the beam switched on, I froze. Dozens of Coca Cola bottles around me began shaking on their pallets, vibrating violently, caps rattling, plastic bending, liquid sloshing. Then one by one, they exploded. Not like fizzing out, not like carbonation, but as if something had punched through them from the inside. Boom, boom, boom. Syrupy liquid drenched the floor. The shadows around me twisted and expanded, merging into a single towering figure behind the pallets. It stepped forward, its limbs long and snapping, its torso stretched like melting plastic. It had no eyes, no mouth, just a face shaped like a smeared silhouette. The whisper came from everywhere. Don't leave. I ran. I didn't look back. The creature lunged. A pallet crashed behind me as it fell, barely missing my spine. I dove under a conveyor belt, crawling through sticky syrup, gasping for breath. The shadow slid after me, faster than I expected, its voice rising. Stay! In the dark! Stay with me! I burst out the other side, sprinting toward the main entrance. Carl saw the lights flickering violently and ran to help, but the creature reached him first. It didn't touch him. It didn't need to. The pallet beside him tipped over as if shoved by invisible hands. Carl jumped aside just in time. Move, Evan! He screamed. Don't look back! We ran through the lobby, crashed through the exit and jumped into the freezing night air. The warehouse behind us went silent, completely silent. No one believed us. Corporate denied everything. They blamed faulty shelving, old machinery, and electrical issues. They sealed storage room C and replaced the entire management team within a month. Carl quit the same week I did. He moved to Tennessee. I haven't heard from him since, but strange things still happen at the Red Line warehouse. Workers keep quitting. Forklifts move on their own. People claim they hear whispering after 2 a.m. One new employee posted a video on TikTok showing shadows crawling between the Coca Cola pallets. He deleted it an hour later. Corporate said it was edited. Sure, it's been almost a year. I live in a different city now, far from Georgia. I work at a small convenience store during the day, but the shadow hasn't stopped. I see it in reflections, behind the stacks of soda bottles on aisle 3. I hear the whisper when the store lights flicker. I smell the syrup when I close the walk-in cooler. Sometimes I wake up at night and swear something is crouched in the corner of my room, watching me, waiting. And yesterday, the Coca Cola vending machine outside my store malfunctioned. A dark liquid leaked from the coin slot. A handprint slid down the glass. The same one I saw months ago. I think the shadow followed me. Or maybe, once it notices you, it never lets you go. Story 2. I still remember the night everything changed. The night I discovered what was really inside the Coca Cola bottles leaving the factory floor. My name is Evan Carter, and until last year, I worked the night shift at the Coca Cola bottling plant in Ridgefield, Colorado, a quiet town tucked between abandoned freight lines and silent wheat fields. Most people think working at a Coca Cola plant is easy. Machines hum, bottles move, syrup flows. But when the sun goes down and you're alone with nothing but conveyor belts and industrial shadows, the plant feels less like a workplace and more like something watching you. I had taken the night shift because it paid extra and because I didn't mind being alone. After my dad died of a heart attack 2 years ago, I stopped wanting to be around people anyway. Silence felt safer, predictable. The Ridgefield Coca Cola plant was huge. 4 floors of machinery, syrup vats, bottling lines, and a refrigeration wing where temperatures dropped so low you could see your breath. Night shifts had only 2 employees. Me, the line operator, Lou Ramirez, the quality supervisor in his late 50s. Lou had been working there for 30 years. He always joked that he had more Coca-Cola in his veins than blood. But lately, something about him seemed off. He avoided the 4th floor. He refused to drink the Coke samples. And he always said the same thing before starting the shift. Don't look into the batch room after midnight. Ever. I thought it was some old-timer superstition, something to scare the newbies. I wish I had listened. The batch room was where the syrup was mixed, the heart of the entire plant. Deep tanks, pipes twisting like metal veins, and the smell, sweet, sharp, almost chemical. Every night at 12:30 a.m., the system automatically created something called Batch 39. No one ever touched it, not even Lou. He said it was corporate formula testing, but no reports went out, no shipments left the room, no forklift ever carried it. So where did Batch 39 go? I asked him once. He stared at me for a long time and said quietly, "You don't want to know what they mix after midnight." The first strange thing happened on a Thursday. I was restocking empty bottles when I heard a thud from the batch room. Not a machine noise, not metal. Something organic. Almost like a hand slapping the inside of one of the syrup tanks. I froze. The sound came again. Then a long scraping noise, like fingernails dragging across steel. My entire body locked. The air felt thicker, syrup-like itself. Around 1 a.m., Lou came rushing down the stairs, breathing hard. "What did you hear?" he asked. I didn't even get to answer. He grabbed my arm tightly, tighter than a man his age should be able to. "Whatever you think you heard, you didn't. Understand?" His eyes were glossy, afraid. That night, he didn't leave his office, not even for his routine quality checks. And I kept hearing that scraping sound long after the conveyor belt stopped. The next night, we started bottling a new batch. Everything looked normal. Clean bottles, clear labels, ruby dark Coke flowing smoothly. But when I lifted one bottle off the line, the liquid inside wasn't moving right. It swirled, slowly, like it had weight, like something inside was shifting in the dark. I held it toward the light, and for a split second, I swear I saw an eye staring back from the cola. Not human. Round, pale, pressed against the inside of the glass as if trapped beneath the surface. The bottle shook in my hand. No! It pushed back. I dropped it. It shattered. The Coke spilled across the floor, thick and dark, almost red. Lou sprinted over. When he saw the mess, his face went ghost white. "Did you look inside?" he asked. I didn't speak. He didn't wait for my answer. He just whispered, "It sees attention. Don't give it any more." It sees you. Not the formula, just it. Later during break, I cornered Lou in his office. "Tell me what's going on," I demanded. "You're scared of the machines. You're scared of batch 39. And whatever's happening in those bottles isn't normal." He didn't answer right away. He shut the blinds, locked the door. Then he told me everything. 20 years ago, corporate ordered the Ridgefield plant to test a new variation of Coca Cola syrup, something that used organic fermentation, something that grows flavor profiles naturally. But the mixture reacted with the tanks. It didn't stay liquid. It began forming, changing, shifting. Employees started seeing shapes inside the syrup, faces, hands, something alive. So corporate sealed off the batch room after midnight. They automated everything. No human involvement. "But it's learning," Lou whispered. "Every year it gets stronger, smarter. It knows when someone's watching." I asked why he never quit. His hands shook. "Because it won't let me." 2 days later, everything fell apart. A pressure alarm started screaming from the batch room. The tanks never had pressure issues. They were industrial-grade steel. But tonight, something inside was pounding against them. Hard. The walls shuddered. The pipes rattled like bones. I heard a low gurgling sound, almost like a voice trying to speak through liquid. Lou ran toward the batch room yelling, "Don't open the door!" But the door began sliding open on its own. The pressure had overloaded the lock. A wave of thick, dark Coke poured out, but it wasn't liquid anymore. It was crawling, slithering across the floor like a mass of black worms fused together. Shapes formed within it. Fingers, faces, mouths opening and closing without sound. Lou screamed, "I told you! It wants attention! Once you see it, once you know it, it follows you!" The syrup creature surged forward, rising like a living sheet of ink. Something grabbed Lou's leg. It pulled him off his feet. He clawed at the concrete. His nails tore off. "Evan, run!" I tried to grab his arm, but the thing was stronger. It dragged him into the batch room, swallowing him whole. His scream cut off instantly. The plant lights went out. Emergency red strobes flickered. The creature oozed toward me down the hallway, dragging itself, pulling pieces of machinery with it as if learning to use tools. I ran, up the metal stairs, across the conveyor belts, through the loading bays. Everywhere I turned, the Coke bottles on the shelves were vibrating, as if something inside each one was waking up. I burst out into the freezing Colorado night. Behind me, the plant doors shook violently, something heavy slamming against them from inside. I didn't stop running until I reached my truck. I drove without looking back. No police report, no news coverage. By morning, corporate had sealed the plant. New locks, new guards, and absolutely no explanation. For months, I tried to forget what I saw. But then, I started noticing things at grocery stores. A bottle on a shelf would twitch, just slightly. A six-pack of Coke would rattle when no one touched it. And once, at 2 a.m. in my apartment, I heard a familiar scraping sound coming from the refrigerator. When I opened it, one of the Coke bottles inside was fogged on the inside, like something warm was breathing against the glass. And there was an eye staring at me from the dark fizz. Not human. Waiting. Watching. Learning. I threw the bottle away. But that night, the scraping started behind my bedroom wall. It had followed me home. And if you're reading this, check your fridge. Check every bottle. If any of them look back at you, it means batch 39 has noticed you too. And once you give it attention, it never stops following. Story 3. I never thought a simple bottle of Coca Cola could destroy a life, least of all mine. But everything that happened during the fall of 2022 in Ridgeway, Colorado, still freezes my blood every time I walk past the soda aisle in any store. This wasn't just a product gone wrong or a marketing conspiracy. It was something older, something buried, something we never should have disturbed. Back then, I worked the night shift at a 24-hour Crest Mart, a small-town superstore that sat right off Highway 16. My manager, Ben Harper, trusted me enough to run the late hours alone, especially on quiet weekdays. It was usually just me, the hum of the freezers and the flicker of old overhead lights that never stayed fully bright. I'm writing this now because people still don't believe what I saw or what I heard. But I know what happened, and I know what I let out. The story started on a Tuesday. Tuesdays were slow, but corporations didn't care about that. Shipments came anyway. Around midnight, a semi-truck labeled Coca Cola North America Confidential Freight pulled into the dock. No driver ever spoke to me. They left paperwork on the boxes and drove off without a word. But that night was different. The driver stepped out, a tall man with greasy blonde hair and a jacket too big for him. He looked exhausted, eyes sunken, breathing heavy like he'd run a marathon. "You the night clerk?" he asked in a trembling voice. "Yeah," I said. "You okay?" He didn't answer. He walked to the back of his truck, pulled up the gate, and I saw a pallet, only one pallet, wrapped in black industrial plastic instead of the usual clear wrap. He looked around, then leaned close to me. "Don't open these," he whispered. "Don't stock them. Don't move them. Don't even touch them." I stared at him, confused. "Then why deliver them?" He swallowed hard. "I'm just told to get rid of them. Somewhere far from any city." "What's inside?" His voice cracked. "You don't want to know." Before I could ask more, he shoved the paperwork into my hand and walked fast back to his truck, almost slipping as he climbed in. Then he sped away like something was chasing him. I checked the manifest. Experimental Batch C17, returned to Coca Cola Research Division, not for distribution, not for opening, handle with caution. There was a red stamp at the bottom, containment required. I laughed nervously. Probably just some expired test flavor, right? Right? Around 1:30 a.m., boredom got the best of me. Whoever wrote those warnings was clearly paranoid. And besides, if corporate didn't want something opened, they shouldn't have delivered it to a minimum wage employee making $13.75 an hour at midnight. I sliced the plastic, but inside I didn't find bottles. I found glass Coca Cola bottles from the 1970s, sealed, pristine, filled with pitch-black liquid thicker than any soda I'd ever seen. Not brown, not caramel-colored, black, pure black, like tar. One bottle had slipped sideways and cracked during shipping. A few drops of the dark liquid had leaked onto the wooden pallet, burning through it like acid. I jumped back, heart pounding. What the hell? Then a smell hit me, sweet, sugary, nostalgic. And behind it, something foul, like rotting fruit mixed with rusted metal. I put everything back and rewrapped the pallet in panic. But it was too late. The dripping sound started, not from the bottles, from the ceiling. Drip, drip, drip. Thick black droplets fell from the light fixture above, sizzling as they hit the tile. I stared upward. The liquid wasn't coming from the pallet. It was coming from inside the ceiling itself, spreading, searching. At 2:15 a.m., the store lights dimmed and flickered, humming loudly. The soda aisle 9, went completely dark. I grabbed my flashlight. Each step toward that aisle felt heavier, like the air was thickening. When I turned the corner, the smell hit me once again. Stronger now, almost suffocating. Every soda bottle on the shelves was vibrating. Not shaking from the building, vibrating on their own. The labels bubbled, the caps twitched, and every bottle of Coca Cola, original, diet, zero, cherry, slowly turned the same impossible color. Black, coal black. "No, no, no! What the hell is this?" I whispered, stepping back. A cold breeze blew through the aisle, but the store doors were locked, no windows open. Then the bottles began popping open, one by one, releasing pressurized gas mixed with a sound that didn't belong in a grocery store. Not fizzing, whispering, dozens of bottles whispering the same faint phrase, "Drink, me." My hands shook. I wanted to run, but something made me turn toward the end of the aisle. Someone stood there. A man, tall, thin, wearing an old Coca Cola delivery uniform from the 1970s. Faded red, cracked logo, shirt almost decaying on his body. His skin was pale gray, his eyes were black, and black liquid dripped from his fingers. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. He raised one dripping hand and pointed at me. "You opened it," he whispered, voice echoing like it came from a well. "You released us." I stumbled backward. Who are you?" His neck twisted with a sickening crack. "C-17, he whispered. "The forgotten batch. The one they buried." "What batch?" He stepped closer, bare feet dragging on the tile, each step leaving black, burning footprints. 1974, the contamination year, he said. "They made something new, something alive, something that grows." The bottles behind me began shaking violently. "They tried to destroy us, but we do not die. We multiply." He leaned inches from my face, black liquid dripping from his chin like drool. "You fed us light. You freed the carbonation." I tried to turn, but something cold wrapped around my ankles, tendrils of black soda creeping like vines. I screamed and kicked myself free, slipping and scrambling down the aisle. Behind me, the man whispered, "You can't outrun thirst." The store was no longer a store. Black tendrils crawled down the walls. Coolers cracked open as glass shattered inside. The Coca Cola fridge near the front sparkled once before the glass exploded outward, spraying shards. The sound system turned on by itself. But instead of music, it played something warped and reversed. An old jingle from decades ago. "Have a Coke and a smile." Reversed, slowed, distorted. I grabbed my phone to call 911. No signal. Every screen, registers, monitors, CCTV, showed the same thing. A close-up of an eye. Black, blinking slowly, watching me. The aisle lights burst one by one with small explosions. And then, the whisper returned. "Drink me, drink me, drink me." Over and over, louder, closer. Hands, black, sticky, syrup-coated, crawled out from underneath the soda shelves. Fingers made of liquid. They reached for my shoes. I bolted toward the back exit. But when I pushed it, the door handle dissolved into black sludge the moment I touched it. There was only one place left, the stockroom. I sprinted through overturned mops, pallets, and soaking cardboard, kicking open the stockroom door and slamming it shut behind me. My chest heaved. My hands shook uncontrollably. The only light came from a flickering bulb. But the pallet, the cursed pallet, was glowing faintly, almost pulsing. And the cracked bottle? It wasn't cracked anymore. It was open and half empty. A trail of black footprints, bare feet, led away from it. I followed them with my flashlight, trembling. They ended at the far wall, where another figure stood. Not the delivery man, someone else. A woman, pale, eyes hollow, wearing an old Crestmart uniform I didn't recognize. She turned toward me. Her jaw hung halfway off her face. "I tried to warn them," she gurgled. "In '79, when the first shipment came." I froze. "You worked here?" "I died here." My heart dropped. "This batch, it eats," she whispered. "It feeds on carbon, feeds on light, feeds on us." "What do I do?" I cried. "How do I stop it?" She stepped closer, grabbing my face with cold, syrup-coated fingers. "You don't?" The stockroom door behind me shook violently. Bang, bang, bang. The voices outside whispered, chanted, begged. "Drink me, drink me, drink me." The woman disappeared like a burst of mist, leaving only a puddle behind. The pallet began vibrating. Glass bottles rattled, caps popped. The room filled with the choking scent of sweetness mixed with death. I knew I had one chance. I grabbed a metal rod and smashed the fire suppression alarm above me. Sprinklers activated. Cold water sprayed everywhere. The black liquid shrieked, actually shrieked, like boiling flesh hitting ice. It recoiled, smoke rising from it. But the pallet, oh God, the pallet split open like something inside was pushing outward. An enormous black mass rose. Not liquid anymore. Not solid either. Something between both. A shape. A creature. A swollen, bubbling silhouette of a man with thousands of tiny bottle caps embedded in its skin. It swallowed the light around it. It reached toward me with a sound like the entire soda aisle exploding. I ran to the exit door, now softened enough to push open. I sprinted out into the cold night. Behind me, the store collapsed inward like something had consumed it from the inside out. I didn't stop running until I reached Highway 16. By sunrise, Crestmart was gone. Nothing left but blackened cement and scorched metal. No bodies, no bottles, no shelves. Nothing. The company claimed it was a chemical fire caused by cleaning supplies. They built a fence, put up warning signs, and never rebuilt. But here's the part that keeps me awake at night. 2 days after the collapse, a package arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside was a single glass Coca Cola bottle, filled with that same impossible black liquid, and a note. Batch C17 isn't finished with you. Sometimes late at night, I hear whispering from inside the bottle. Drink me. But I never will, because I know the truth. C17 isn't a drink. It's a hunger, and hunger always comes back. Story 4, I never believed something as harmless as a Coca Cola bottle could destroy a life, let alone mine. But everything changed on a cold October night in Crestline Springs, Colorado, a small mountain town where everyone knew everyone, and rumors traveled faster than the wind that cut through the pines. My name is Ethan Ward, 27 years old, working the graveyard shift at a local gas station, Pine Ridge Fuel and Mart, a roadside stop right off Highway 74. I wasn't proud of the job, but it paid enough to keep my studio apartment warm and my student loans from suffocating me entirely. The thing is, nights at Pine Ridge were usually dead. A couple truckers, maybe a drunk teen. Once in a while a lost tourist who regretted taking the scenic route in the dark. But 3 weeks ago, something new started happening. People began returning Coca Cola bottles. Not because they were expired, not because they tasted bad, but because something inside the bottles moved. I thought it was a joke. Kids messing around. Then I opened one bottle and saw it myself. A dark, shifting shadow swirling inside. Almost like smoke, but heavier, thicker. At the time, I shrugged it off as a manufacturing issue. That was my first mistake. The night everything changed, it was 11:47 p.m. I was restocking the refrigerated shelves, humming under my breath to fight the silence. The Coke section was nearly empty again. Another wave of people had returned them earlier, claiming the liquid looked wrong. I bent down to slide a crate into the lower rack, and that's when the motion sensor bell at the door chimed. Ding. I looked up. A man walked in, tall, pale, with a thick black coat that seemed too heavy for fall weather. His face was blank, his expression unreadable. But what struck me most was what he held. A single Coca Cola bottle. He walked straight to the counter without looking at anything else. "Can I help you, sir?" I asked, stepping behind the register. He placed the bottle down gently, as though it was fragile. "Don't drink it," he said in a low, gravelly voice. I wasn't going to." He leaned in. "You need to stop selling them." I frowned. "Sir, I just work here. I can't really—" He didn't let me finish. His eyes widened, pupils dilating unnaturally. "They're waking up." Before I could respond, he turned and walked out. No explanation, no payment, no return request, just the bottle sitting cold on the counter. Something was swirling inside. It wasn't carbonation. The movement was wrong, too deliberate, almost like something alive was trying to rise to the surface but couldn't. I swallowed hard and lifted the bottle into the light. The liquid looked normal at first, dark brown and glossy under the fluorescent bulbs. But then from the bottom, a thin shadow slipped upward like a tendril and pressed against the plastic. I dropped the bottle. It hit the countertop but didn't crack. Instead, the liquid inside rippled, forming a shape, something like an open mouth. I stepped back, pulse hammering. What the hell is this? At that moment, my coworker, Maya Thompson, arrived for her shift. She was 24, bright, sarcastic, and way too energetic for midnight. "You look like you just saw a corpse," she joked. "I might have," I muttered, pointing at the bottle. She picked it up before I could stop her. "Huh, looks normal to me." "No, wait." Before I could explain, she twisted the cap open. A sharp hiss escaped, longer and deeper than any soda fizz I'd ever heard. Then the lights flickered. Not once, not twice. They stayed flickering, like something was feeding off the electricity. "Ethan," Maya whispered, stepping closer to me. The shadow in the bottle began rising. Slow, slow, then suddenly fast. I grabbed Maya's wrist and pulled her back. Too late. The shadow shot out, thin, smoky, serpent-like, and disappeared under the shelves. Maya screamed. I didn't blame her, because the shadow wasn't just gone, it was moving. We heard scratching, sharp, frantic, circling us. "Turn on the lights," Maya shouted. "They're already on," I snapped. But the flickering persisted, stretching shadows across the aisles in long, distorted streaks that didn't match our movements. Then came a whisper, a soft, cold breath against the back of my neck. "Thirsty?" I froze. "Maya, did you hear?" Before I finished, a Coca Cola bottle fell off the top shelf from the other aisle. Clack, then another. Clack. Then a whole row tipped over like someone dragged a hand across them. Maya clutched my arm. "Ethan, something's in here." "No, it's not in here." My throat tightened. "It's inside the Coke." A sudden loud bang hit the wall behind the refrigerators. The compressors groaned. The glass doors fogged instantly, as if a winter storm had erupted inside them. Then, slowly, something formed in the frost. A handprint, then another, then a long, twisted face. Maya grabbed her phone, but it shut off instantly. Battery full, but dead as a corpse. Mine followed seconds later. The air grew colder, enough to sting our skin. Then from the back storage room, we heard the unmistakable clink of glass bottles being moved. I didn't want to look. Maya did. She peeked through the doorway and gasped. "Ethan, the boxes! They're opening on their own." I stepped beside her. She was right. Dozens of Coca Cola crates were trembling. One by one, their caps twisted open, not by force, but by something inside pushing upward. Fizzy hisses filled the air. Every bottle was awakening. "We need to get out! Now!" I yelled. But before we could run, the bottles erupted simultaneously, thick black shadows shooting out like smoke bombs. The entire store filled with swirling darkness, shapes writhing and twisting together as if forming a single, living mass. Then a screech tore through the building, high-pitched, metallic, almost like the shriek of bending steel. The shadows merged, connected, formed legs, arms, a spine made of flickering darkness, and finally, a face, not human, not animal, a hollow open void. It took one step toward us, and the floor vibrated. "Run!" Maya screamed. We bolted toward the exit, but the automatic doors didn't open. They were locked, or worse, being held shut by something. The shadow creature surged forward, its limbs stretching unnaturally long, grabbing the shelves, pulling itself toward us like a crawling nightmare. I threw my shoulder into the glass door. Bam! It didn't budge. "Ethan, we're trapped," Maya cried. The creature was inches away now. Its breath was cold, sweet, sugary, like rotting syrup. Then the door behind the counter slammed open. The pale man from earlier stepped out holding something, a full crate of Coca Cola bottles. "Get down!" he shouted. We dropped instantly. He tossed the crate toward the creature. The bottles shattered on impact. But instead of shadows escaping, the creature recoiled. The liquid hissed against its body like acid. It screamed, then dissolved into a black mist. The room fell silent. The lights stopped flickering. Maya and I gasped for air as the pale man approached us. "You need to listen carefully," he said. "What was that thing?" Maya whispered. The man stared at the shattered bottles, his voice low. "They're not drinks anymore." His eyes lifted slowly. "They're containers." We followed him outside where his old pickup truck sat idling. Inside the bed were dozens, maybe hundreds, of Coca Cola bottles filled with shifting shadows. He wasn't a crazy stranger. He was collecting them. Why? I asked. He lit a cigarette with shaking hands. Because if I don't, they spread. What are they? Something old, he said, eyes on the horizon. Something that feeds on sugar, something that got mixed into a shipment, maybe during transport, maybe earlier. I don't know. Why didn't you tell someone? The police? The company? Maya demanded. Because nobody believes what they can't understand. He glanced at us. You two saw what happened in there. I nodded weakly. He opened the passenger door of his truck. You can help me, or you can pretend none of this ever happened and wait for the next bottle to open itself. Maya looked at me. Ethan? But before I could answer, a soft hiss filled the air. We all turned. Inside the store, the Coca Cola refrigerator lit up again. Every remaining bottle inside began to shake. Caps turned. Shadows swirled. The pale man whispered, It's too late. The glass doors of the refrigerator burst outward as dozens of dark tendrils whipped into the air. Maya screamed and sprinted toward the parking lot. I grabbed her hand and pulled her behind a truck just as the shadows crawled out of the shattered doors like liquid smoke. The pale man climbed into his truck. Get in the back, he yelled. We didn't think, we just obeyed. As soon as we jumped in, he slammed the gas. The shadows chased the truck, stretching across the asphalt like tar, crawling over each other, growing larger with every Coke bottle they consumed. They're multiplying, Maya yelled over the roar of the engine. No, the man growled, gripping the wheel. They're forming. In the rearview mirror, a massive shape was rising from the ground, a towering figure made of thousands of liquid shadows, forming a monstrous silhouette that loomed over the gas station. The lights around the station blew out. The power grid cut across the entire block. Only the moonlight illuminated the creature. It opened a gaping void-like mouth, and the sound it made wasn't a roar. It was fizzing, like a Coke bottle shaken too hard. We sped down Highway 74, the creature slowly shrinking in the distance as it lost access to more bottles. But the pale man didn't relax. This isn't over, he said. There are millions of bottles out there, millions of containers. What do we do? I asked. He exhaled shakily. We find them before they open. And if they already opened? Maya whispered. He stared straight ahead. Then we hope the world is ready. The truck disappeared into the darkness. Behind us, the gas station collapsed in on itself, consumed by a whirl of shadows that finally hissed into silence. But I knew, deep down, this wasn't ending. Every vending machine, every grocery store, every fridge, filled with Coca Cola bottles, filled with something else, something waiting, something thirsty, something that would eventually reach someone who didn't listen to warnings. And when they opened that bottle, the world would know the truth. Story 5. My name is Evan Mercer, and until last summer, I lived a quiet life in Macon, Georgia, working the night shift at a small gas station off Interstate 75. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid my rent, and the solitude suited me. I didn't talk much, didn't party, didn't make enemies. I was just a guy stacking shelves and selling snacks to truckers at 2 a.m. But everything changed the night I opened that Coca Cola bottle. It was around 1:14 a.m. The parking lot empty, except for a few bugs dancing around the streetlights. I was restocking the fridge, arranging soda bottles by brand like always. Then I saw it. One Coca Cola bottle didn't match the others. The label was the same red, same logo. But the inside liquid looked darker, thicker, almost like syrup mixed with tar. And when I picked it up, the bottle felt colder than ice, painfully cold, like holding dry ice with bare hands. I flinched and dropped it into the cart. What the hell? I checked the timestamp on the pallet. Delivered at 12:03 a.m. Only I knew no delivery truck had come. I would have heard it, signed for it, logged it. This bottle came from nowhere. I called my friend Lily, who worked mornings. You inventorying again this early? She joked sleepily. No, I whispered. Something's wrong with one of the Coke bottles. You're calling me at 1 in the morning for a soda problem? It's not soda, I said. The liquid is black and freezing. She paused. Evan, don't open it. Just leave it on the counter. I'll check it in the morning. I wanted to do exactly that, but the bottle, it pulsed. I swear to God, it pulsed like a heartbeat. I put it on the counter, but every time I looked at it, I felt a weird pressure behind my eyes, like it was staring back. Just then, the doorbell chimed. A customer walked in, an old man, pale, tall, wearing a gray raincoat despite the clear sky. He didn't browse. He went straight to the counter and pointed at the bottle. "That one," he rasped. "I need that bottle." His voice sounded like someone dragging metal. "Sir, I haven't scanned it." "Give it to me," he demanded, fist shaking. Something about him terrified me, not because he looked dangerous, but because he looked scared. He kept glancing at the bottle like it was alive. "Please," he whispered. "You don't know what's inside." Before I could react, the bottle suddenly cracked, releasing a soft hiss. The old man stepped back in horror. It woke up. The bottle cap burst off, spinning across the floor like a coin. A thick vapor seeped out, black and oily, spilling over the counter like smoke underwater. I couldn't move, couldn't think. The old man screamed, "Don't breathe it!" But it was too late. The black vapor wrapped around my hand like a glove, then crawled up my arm. It was cold at first, freezing, then burning hot. The old man ran toward the door, but slammed into something invisible midair, hitting the ground. The store lights flickered. The vapor entered my skin. Suddenly, I heard hundreds of whispers. Not around me, inside me. Drink. Finish. Complete. My knees buckled. The bottle, now empty, rolled toward me. The old man crawled away. "You activated it," he wheezed. "It marks the nearest living host once opened." "Marks? For what?" "For replacement." He forced himself up. "There is a Coca Cola plant in Valdosta," he said, still shaking. "One that shut down quietly years ago. People said it was financial issues." He looked straight into my eyes. "But the real reason? Disappearances. Not random. Employees working the night bottling lines vanished. Always during the Coke syrup cycle." He continued. "A contamination report leaked. Something got into the mixture. Something not from this world." "What does that have to do with this bottle?" I croaked as my arm throbbed. "The substance needs a host. It imitates whatever it absorbs." Entire workers were replaced and walked out looking normal. Until they didn't. My fingers numbed. "You mean something inside this bottle wants to become me?" The old man nodded slowly. "I escaped that plant years ago. But the marked bottles always come back. They're delivered to the last surviving witness." He stared at me with hollow eyes. "Me?" The whispers grew louder. "You opened it. You invited us. Complete the drink." I ran to the bathroom, clutching my arm. My veins were turning black like ink spreading through water. "Evan," the old man shouted, "listen to me. If the transformation finishes, you won't be you. And the thing wearing your face will leave this store. It'll find others." I splashed water on my face, but the reflection made my stomach drop. My eyes were darkening. Not black, empty. Suddenly, my reflection smiled. But I didn't. "Stop," I begged. Behind me, the stall door creaked open on its own. The fluorescent lights buzzed violently as the whispers became one single voice. "Let me out." I stumbled back to the counter. The old man stood there, sweating, trembling. He was holding a small metal cylinder. When he opened it, a faint red glow escaped. "This is the only thing that slows it," he said. "A thermal disruptor. It freezes the organism inside you." "But earlier you said it was freezing." "It mimics sensations. It doesn't freeze you. It freezes it." He pointed the device at my arm. "This is going to hurt." Before I could protest, he pressed the cold metal to my skin. I screamed. Black tendrils shot out of my pores like worms retreating from light. My body convulsed and I hit the floor. The old man yelled, "Fight it! You have about 60 seconds until it adapts to the temperature." The whispers turned into shrieking. My vision blurred. "I can't." "You have to," he shouted, "or everything you are will be overwritten." My mind split between two voices, mine and the thing's. The old man knelt beside me. "I've seen what happens when it wins. It can mimic your voice, your memories, your behavior. It walks out the door and no one suspects anything. My heartbeat slowed. The black veins reached my neck. The creature inside me whispered, "Let me finish, and I'll let you watch through your own eyes as I live your life." I grabbed onto the shelf to stay conscious. "Tell me what to do," I gasped. The old man hesitated, then said the words I didn't want to hear. "You have to destroy the host." "My body?" "Yes." My chest tightened. "But I'll die." He bowed his head. "I'm sorry, son, but if you don't, dozens more will." The lights flickered. The thing inside me laughed. "He's lying. He wants the host for himself." I growled in pain. I had 60 seconds to decide whether to save myself or everyone else. The old man slid a lighter toward me, the cheap gas station kind. "You open the bottle over a flammable counter soaked in cleaning fluid," he said. "Ignite it. Burn it before it completes." My hands shook violently. The creature whispered, "If you die alone. If you let me live, we live together." I looked at the old man. He looked terrified, but also relieved. "Please, Evan," he said, "end this. End what started in that plant." My arm curled unnaturally as the creature moved beneath my skin. I flicked the lighter. The flame popped to life. The creature screeched. The old man stumbled backward. I pressed the lighter to the counter. A fireball erupted around me, engulfing everything. I felt my skin burn, felt the creature thrashing inside, heard both our screams mixing together. And then, silence. I woke up in a hospital 2 days later, alive, barely. A fire inspector told me the store went up too fast for anyone to escape, except me. The old man was gone, never found. No remains, no traces. But when they brought me my burnt belongings, something chilled my blood. Inside the plastic bag was a bottle cap, the same cap from the Coca Cola bottle, blackened, scarred, but intact. At the bottom was a stamped message, "Try again." I am writing this because the doctors say the dark veins under my skin are just burn scarring, but I know better. At night, I still hear whispers. I don't know how long I have before the thing inside me wakes up again. And if it does, someone else will find a strange Coca Cola bottle waiting for them, exactly like I did. Story 6, I never thought a simple bottle of Coca Cola would ruin my life. My name is Ethan Marlowe, a 27-year-old warehouse handler from Benton Ridge, Ohio, a small, quiet town where nothing ever happens. I grew up here, left for college in Columbus, dropped out, then returned because home felt safer. Familiar, predictable, it wasn't. Back in 2023, I got hired at a Coca Cola distribution center just outside town, a huge red and white warehouse you could spot from half a mile away. The job was easy. Unload incoming trucks, stack cases, check codes, go home. No stress, no drama. Until the night shift started. Until that bottle showed up. It was November 12th. A windstorm was shaking the metal doors so hard that the walls hummed. Most workers had already left early. Only me, my supervisor Rick Holston, and the janitor Tommy Hales were inside. At around 11:40 p.m., I found a pallet with a broken seal. The shrink wrap was torn, like someone jammed their hand into the middle of the stack. Coke bottles were scattered everywhere, as if something exploded inside. But one bottle was different. At first I didn't notice it. It looked old, dusty, the label faded, the cap rusted around the edges like it had been submerged in water. But the weird thing? It was cold. Ice cold. Even though the warehouse was warm that night, the manufacturing code printed on the neck read 07-04-1998-line 17-B-303 AM. Impossible. Coca-Cola distribution never keeps anything older than 2 months. I radioed Rick. "Hey, I got something weird on pallet 22. He walked over, annoyed. "What now?" I handed him the bottle. He frowned, rubbing his thumb over the dusty glass. "Where the hell did this come from?" Before I could answer, the cold bottle grew colder. Frost spread across the label. We both stared at it. Then Rick whispered, "Do you hear that?" At first I thought it was the wind, but no. This was coming from the bottle, a faint tapping, from the inside. Rick set it down immediately. Screw this. We're reporting it to inventory control in the morning. But I picked it up again, because the tapping stopped, and something new appeared inside the bottle. Tiny bubbles rising from nothing. No fizz, no sound. Just slow, unnatural movement, like whatever was inside wasn't carbon dioxide at all. I brought the bottle closer to my ear. That was my first mistake. I swear on my life, I heard a voice. A tiny, breathy whisper. Let me out! I dropped the bottle so hard it rolled across the concrete floor but didn't break. Rick shouted, Enough! Lock it in the defect cabinet. I didn't sleep that night. I kept hearing that whisper in my head. I told myself it was the storm, the metal doors, stress, anything but what I knew I heard. The next day at work, the defect cabinet was open, and the bottle was gone. Rick accused Tommy, the janitor. Poor guy had worked there 20 years and barely spoke. I didn't touch nothing, he kept repeating, but his hands were trembling, and he wouldn't look at the empty cabinet. That night, when I clocked out and walked into the parking lot, I saw it, sitting on the hood of my pickup, the same bottle, cold, wet with frost, label older than me. I didn't touch it. I backed away slowly. But as soon as I reached the driver's side door, the bottle slid, on its own, toward the windshield edge like something inside shifted its weight. My breath froze in my throat. Suddenly my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Drink it! I dropped my phone and ran back inside the warehouse. Rick was still in the main office, typing up reports. I burst in, panting. The bottle's outside, on my truck. Someone texted me to drink it. He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Ethan, enough. It's probably a prank. We've got teenagers breaking in all the time. No, I insisted. This bottle, there's something inside it. Rick exhaled slowly. Then let's both go look. We stepped into the lot together. My truck hood was empty. The bottle was gone. Rick patted my shoulder. See? Someone's messing with you. But as we turned back toward the warehouse, something rolled across the ground and bumped gently into my boot. The bottle. It had rolled from behind a concrete pillar, where no incline existed. Rick swore under his breath. Okay, that's not normal. He bent down and finally did what neither of us had dared to do. Held the bottle against the beam of his phone flashlight. That's when we saw it clearly, a dark, thin shadow inside the bottle, swirling like smoke trapped in liquid. Then two faint white specks appeared inside the shadow. Eyes, small, pale, watching us from inside a Coca Cola bottle. Rick's face drained of color. Put that thing in my truck. We're taking it to the police. But when he tried to grab the bottle, it stuck to the ground, like the concrete had melted around it. Rick pulled harder. Then the bottle pulsed, one sharp, jerking movement, and a deep, vibrating sound echoed inside it, low enough to shake our bones. Rick recoiled, shouting, No, 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 screw this, leave it. We ran back into the warehouse and locked the doors. We didn't know Tommy had seen everything from the loading dock. We didn't know it wanted him next. I arrived at work the next morning and immediately sensed something was wrong. Police cars were parked at the entrance. Yellow tape. Officers talking quietly. Inside, employees gathered near the break room, pale and shaking. Then I saw Tommy's mop bucket lying on its side. The entire floor around it sticky with dark, syrup-colored liquid. Not blood Coca Cola. Detective Harper Maddox approached us. There was an incident last night. We found the janitor unconscious on the loading dock. He's alive but not responsive. Rick whispered. Was there a bottle near him? Harper frowned. Bottle? No. Why would that matter? Because sitting on a shelf directly behind the detective, almost placed carefully, was the same bottle. Frosty, waiting. But only me and Rick noticed it. Harper said Tommy was found with his mouth stained dark, as if he'd swallowed something thick. But toxicology found no poison, no alcohol, no drugs, just abnormal concentrations of carbon dioxide in his throat and lungs. He must have choked, Harper said. I knew he didn't. Tommy had inhaled something that used the Coke as a host. Rick tried to leave early, but Harper stopped him. I'll need both of you for questioning later. As soon as we were alone, I whispered, "We need to get rid of it." Rick nodded. "Tonight, after closing," but the bottle wasn't going to wait. At 6 p.m., when most workers left, the bottle slid off the shelf and shattered on the floor. But the Coke didn't spread. Instead, it rose like smoke underwater, forming a tall, creeping shadow with no face, just white glowing specks where eyes should be. Rick and I froze. The shadow twitched, tilted its head, and whispered, "Thirsty." We ran to the forklift area. Rick grabbed a metal pipe. I snatched a fire extinguisher. But what were we going to do? Fight a shadow? The thing drifted after us, slow but deliberate. Every flicker of the warehouse lights made it appear closer, as if darkness was its doorway. When the emergency lights flicked red, just for a second, it was suddenly right behind me. Rick tackled me out of the way. The shadow wrapped around him like smoke grabbing a branch. He screamed as his body arched unnaturally, ribs popping under the pressure. I swung the fire extinguisher wildly through the cloud. Nothing. It didn't even feel resistance. Rick's scream turned into a choking gurgle, and suddenly the shadow poured itself into his mouth like liquid smoke. His body convulsed, then went still. I crawled backward, breath shaking. "Rick!" He stood up slowly, too slowly, his head lifted with a crack in his neck, eyes glowing faintly white. "Thirsty?" he whispered. That wasn't Rick's voice. He charged. I ducked behind a pallet of canned Dr. Pepper. His fist slammed through cardboard and metal like paper. I sprinted behind the soda racks. I had one idea. One insane, desperate idea. Every Coke bottle has one thing in common: pressure. If I could trap it, back inside a container. I grabbed an empty industrial carbonation canister from a nearby station. My hands shook as I twisted the valve open, releasing gas. Rick, or whatever was controlling him, charged toward me, flickering between shadow and flesh. I held the nozzle toward him and prayed it would work. When the blast of pressurized CO2 hit his chest, the shadow inside his body rippled violently, shrieking through his mouth in a chorus of distorted whispers. The shadow tore out of Rick's body and recoiled backward like it was being vacuumed. Rick collapsed. The shadow shrank, pulling toward the open canister valve, then disappeared inside. The canister hummed, cold, silent, containment. But Rick wasn't breathing, and Detective Harper had seen everything through the warehouse window. When the police stormed in, weapons drawn, I raised my hands immediately. Rick was wheezing on the ground, barely alive. The canister beside me was vibrating faintly, but I kept my hand over the valve. If they opened it, the thing would escape. Harper yelled, "Step away from the equipment!" "No!" I shouted. "You don't understand." Officers tackled me, pinning my face against the concrete. "Check the canister," Harper ordered. I screamed, "Don't touch it!" But they didn't listen. An officer turned the valve. Just a quarter inch. Just enough. A dark mist burst out and shot across the ceiling like spilled ink in water. The lights flickered violently. Everyone froze. Then the mist dropped straight onto Officer Kane's back. He convulsed once, twice, then stood up slowly, head twitching. White glowing specks appeared under his eyelids. Harper stepped back. "Kane, you all right?" He turned toward her, opening his mouth. The shadow spoke using his voice. I said, "Let me out." Panic erupted. Officers fired, the bullets passing through Kane's body harmlessly, ripping through flesh, but doing nothing to the entity inside. The shadow spilled out of him and leapt toward the ceiling rafters, darting between beams like a spider made of smoke. I used the chaos to crawl to Rick, pulling him behind a metal crate. His voice was faint. "Ethan, don't let it use anyone else." "It wants a host," I said. "It needs a body." "No," Rick whispered. "It wants more than that. Whatever's in Coke, whatever formula they've kept secret all these years. It's not normal, kid." And that terrified me more than anything. Harper shouted, "Everyone out, now!" But before we could move, the shadow swept across the rafters and dropped into the center of the room, forming a tall humanoid shape. It raised one long, liquid arm, and every unopened Coca Cola bottle in the warehouse began shaking violently. Thousands of them, all at once. Caps exploded off like gunshots. Screaming filled the air, not from people, but from the bottles, from what was inside them. I grabbed Harper's arm. "We need to shut down the power, now." She didn't believe me, but she had no other plan. We sprinted toward the maintenance room. Behind us, officers were being slammed into shelves, dragged by invisible force, or swallowed by fog that bubbled like boiling syrup. Every bottle that burst released another faint shadow, smaller, weaker versions of the large one, like offspring or fragments. Harper and I barricaded the maintenance room door as shadows clawed from the other side like angry insects. "Where's the power shutoff?" she shouted. "There!" I pointed at the red handle. Before she could pull it, a small shadow seeped through the ventilation grate and slithered across the wall like spilled ink. Harper panicked, pulling out her taser. She fired. The electricity hit the shadow and it shrieked, recoiling violently. Electricity. That gave me an idea. I grabbed the emergency panel wires and tore them free, sparks snapping across my gloves. Then I pressed the sparking ends against the door seam. Shadows screamed as they touched the electricity. The large shadow outside thrashed, slamming the door until hinges bent. Harper yelled, "We can't hold it!" "Then we don't," I said. I flipped the breakers. All of them. The entire warehouse went dark. Every buzzing overhead light died. Every emergency bulb flicked out. And just for a moment, silence. Then, a howl, a deep, vibrating howl like a dying engine. Without electricity, the warehouse became pitch black, except for the glowing white eyes of dozens, maybe hundreds, of small shadows crawling across the floor, and one massive pair of eyes hovering above them. The big one, the original, it whispered, "Thirsty." Then it lunged. We ran blindly down the pitch-black corridor, only guided by the faint emergency exit signs. The shadows slithered behind us, gaining speed. Harper tripped on a pallet jack and screamed. I grabbed her and dragged her back up. "Come on!" But the large shadow surged forward, forming sharp limbs like blades of smoke. We ducked into the forklift station and climbed into the biggest forklift available. No keys. I panicked until Harper pointed at a small black box attached to the ignition. "Warehouse uses remote starters." She slammed her fist on the switch panel. The forklift roared to life. As the shadow charged, I floored the accelerator. We drove straight into the giant black mass. The impact scattered it like smoke blown apart by wind, but it immediately started reforming. "Head to the loading docks," Harper shouted. We turned the forklift toward the giant steel exit doors. Shadows clung to the forklift sides, leaving cold burn marks on the metal. The big shadow rose above us, ready to strike. Then we smashed through the loading dock door at full speed. Cold night air hit us like a tidal wave. Shadows hissed and recoiled as if the outside air weakened them. The biggest one screeched. Harper gasped, "Ethan, the headlights!" I flicked them on. High beams blasted through the fog, and every shadow froze. Light. They hated light. The giant shadow writhed like its skin was burning. I grabbed a long steel pole from the forklift rack. "Keep the lights on it." Harper angled the forklift directly toward the creature. I ran forward and drove the pole through the thickest part of the shadow's chest. It let out a guttural, metallic howl, the sound of 100 bottle caps twisting at once. The shadow peeled apart like burning paper, dissolving into the night air. The smaller shadows evaporated with it. In seconds, everything was quiet. The warehouse lights flickered weakly back on behind us. Harper lowered her taser. "Ethan, what the hell was that?" I stared at the empty air where the shadow had dissolved. "I think," I said quietly, "someone bottled something they never should have." The warehouse shut down permanently. Coca Cola executives arrived the next morning with lawyers and silence. They blamed a chemical leak. They claimed Rick and the officers had hallucinated. They ordered the building demolished. But before it was torn down, one thing was missing. The original bottle. The one with the 1998 code. The one that started everything. Harper transferred to a different state after the incident. Rick survived but refused to talk about what he saw. Tommy never woke up. His body just stopped. As for me, I quit my job, moved to Indiana, and tried to forget. But last week, a package arrived at my door. No return address. Inside was a single glass bottle. Cold, dusty, label faded, cap rusted. The manufacturing code read 12-04-2025, line 17-B, 3:03 a.m. Today's date. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. Drink it. I dropped the bottle immediately. It didn't break. It rolled slowly toward my feet. And from inside, a tiny voice whispered, still thirsty.